Welcome to Adult Puzzle, a podcast where we talk all things adulting.
We all know adulting is a scam, right?
Real scam, very real scam. Honestly, no one knows everything, so we're all in this together.
One puzzle at a time.
We're puzzled together, man. Hello. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Adult Puzzle Podcast, your favorite podcast we know. Thank you very much. I'm one of your co-hosts, Lolade or Lola, and Lamide is with me here, my second, in command here. What's up?
Hi. Great to be back. Yeah, I'm excited. Happy to be here. Lamide. I don't have any nicknames. I'm just Lamide.
I feel like you have some that pops out like randomly, like Midas,
Oh
Midas.
yeah. Oh my God. How did you pronounce that? Say it again. Just so it's on record that you didn't get the pronunciation.
Midas? Midas? I don't
Midas.
know. That's
It's
how it looks.
Midas.
Oh, Midas. Sorry. Midas.
Ah,
Midas.
it's on record, guys. She doesn't know how to
I
pronounce my
just
name.
butchered it. I'm sorry. Today's episode, I'm very, very interested in, very curious on how it goes. It's compromises in relationships. So we're going to be
Mm,
talking about certain instances when it comes to compromises, what our thoughts are on compromises, and like what is good, what is bad from our opinions. And something that we always preface this, I don't know if we say this every episode, but guys, our opinions here, our opinions at this moment, we could change. Because I know one of the things that I'm going to discuss in this topic is how compromising in a relationship looks so much different for me now as a
hmm.
single person entering or going to be in a relationship, I don't know, sometime soon, versus like when I was in my previous relationship. So
So something has
mindsets change.
changed.
Exactly. Something has changed in me. And like I could imagine having this recording this episode in our first season, I may have said something completely different. So allow us the room for evolution if we say something here that we don't agree with in like 4 or 5 months. Yeah. Okay. So as usual, I'm gonna throw a scenario to you, Lamide, and you tell me your honest bits take on it. Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So you're in a romantic relationship. You have a girlfriend. You guys have been dating for I don't know. I don't want to put a number on the time frame, but you guys have been dating. And she's having some challenges because there's a certain friendship that you have that she's uncomfortable with. And she basically wants you to cut that person off, or she kind of takes the stage and leaves. Right? What do you do in that situation?
Um, I think I think the insecurity is valid. There are some friendships that are,
Wait. I have a first, and maybe this is a trigger for me. Did you just say insecurity?
yeah, like
Okay.
I think it's just like because there's a level of trust or whatever. It's like just let me follow me, indulge me.
Okay. I'm
So
following.
yeah, so like I think so. Yeah, the insecurity, an insecurity like that is valid and everything. I don't mean insecurity in a bad way. I just mean it's a problem. So maybe I
Okay.
shouldn't use the term insecurity, but like
No,
it's
go
a
ahead. Say what you want to say. I mean, I
yeah.
want to
So
hear you
like
out.
so that insecurity is very valid. Like humans can feel that kind of way. So I think it's my obligation to listen.
Hmm.
And if it's affecting her, then there are some things that like you know have to change. Like it has to be something like, okay, so is it the way I am when I'm around her? Do we like hug too much? Do we like, is there something that we do in particular that upsets you? Do you think I
Hmm.
pay her more attention than I do to you? Do I like, there are just some certain questions like I would know, like I would like to ask rather, so that I can
Hmm.
adjust. But if it's not a situation where like maybe, uh she's like she doesn't want at all, like she doesn't just feel comfortable around the babe.
Your friend, the girl that's your
So
friend.
yeah, she doesn't feel, yeah, around the girl that's my friend. That's a tough pill to swallow, to be honest, because especially if it's a friendship that has been there for like years,
Hmm.
or but I guess it depends also on the stage I'm in with the girl. two in question. Cause if she's the one in my eye, then something has to give. And it's sad to say, but like I think I'll have the conversation with my friend, like your maybe also tell my babe or my woman that not totally cut off, but I can drastically reduce communication. But like
Okay.
maybe yeah, I can drastically reduce communication to like barest minimum. But like cutting off totally is like impossible, like especially if it's a meaningful friend. But I can drastically reduce communication, although I'll be hurt, like hurt real bad. But I think it's a pill I can swallow.
Mhm.
It's a pill I can swallow if the lady in question is, worth swallowing that type of pee for, So like I think it depends on the situation surrounding it. But it's definitely a conversation that should be had. Then also I think like most times I don't want to speak for women, but like most times like men do pass boundaries when it comes to like, yeah, female friendships and everything because yeah,
I
I'm a
don't.
guy, and I know sometimes like
Yeah.
they blur the lines. I think it should be straight. With me, it's black and white. Like if I have a girl, I have a
Mhm.
girl, and all of that friendships at that point shouldn't be treated like the woman there shouldn't be treated the way I would treat my girl. Like, you
Mhm.
know, I know how to set up fair boundaries. I don't overdo it, like, but like it's just like there are just some things that I know, like you have a girl now. It's not like you should act different, but like you
Mhm.
should place a premium on your girl, that type of thing. But besides that, like if it's not like a thing where I'm passing my boundaries or like doing all like unnecessary shit, I think I'll have the conversation with her. And if she's still adamant, and I'm like, this is the girl I want to spend my life with and everything. I can make that compromise, but I don't think totally cut off. Maybe
So the
just drastically,
compromise. Yeah.
yeah, drastically reduce the way I talk to her, and like then maybe not have that person around. But again, that opens another kind of worms. Like,
Yep.
okay, when I'm not there, what's that like? So
Mhm. Yeah.
probably drastically just reduce, things like that, just to make my woman feel comfortable. But that's a tough pill to swallow. I maintain that, but I think I can do that for someone worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of things you're saying. I think so. There are a couple of things that stood out to me, things that you were saying, and maybe I give my perspective as well. So I
Okay.
definitely agree in the sense of like if the person is worth it,
Hmm.
so like the person that you're with is worth it, then making those readjustments in your friendship dynamic is something that I would be very open to doing as a compromise, right? Not pushing them away as like, oh, I'm not being friends with this person because of my partner, but readjusting and setting certain boundaries. The thing I wanted to circle back on, so when you said insecurities, I think the reason why that triggered me is because so this type of situation, I've seen it happen unfold in so many different ways in my life. Like I have been the close friend to a guy who had a
Hmm.
babe, right? I've
Hmm.
also dated somebody and then while in that relationship had a very close guy friend. I've
Hmm.
he also had a very, very close girlfriend. So like I've sat in different sides of this in terms of
Hmm.
like I've
Hmm.
been the friend that I needed to step down because my guy friend now had a girlfriend and so I couldn't our dynamic just couldn't be the same way. So the reason why I circle back on that insecurity is because I think from my own perspective, there should be an unspoken rule that happens when you do enter a relationship and you
Hmm.
have like a let's just say a guy or a girl best friend or close friend, right? So
Hmm.
let's say if you're attracted to the other sex, right? Your best friend or close friend is of the other sex. There should be a readjustment that happens because one of the things that in my head, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, like I want to hold that like top spot, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't
Hmm.
want to share that with somebody else. And it sounds selfish, yes, I know, but like I want you to come to me with like your most intimate thoughts and your most intimate like conversations. Like I don't
Mhm.
want it to be a copy and paste, right, where you're basically having the same type of dynamic with me, and maybe the only difference is like we get like physical, right? Like no, I want my relationship with you to have a certain level, the highest level when it comes to like ranking, if I'm being
Mhm.
honest, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And same vice versa, right? When I have really close guys friends, and this has happened to me not once, I think maybe like three times, where three of my super, I could call, I just don't use the term best friends like that, but like three of my super duper close friends went into relationships, and things had to be readjusted. Like I couldn't just pick up the phone and call them at like a Friday night 10 p.m., right? Because granted they were probably with their girlfriends and things like that. And so the reason why I circle back to that insecurity is I feel like sometimes it might not necessarily be your partner is feeling insecure. It's just people don't know how to readjust those dynamics when they go into relationships. They kind of expect things to be
Mhm.
the exact same. And I
Mhm.
don't think that's stemming from insecurities if the other person is complaining. I think that's stemming from your partner just doesn't feel uncomfortable, right? It's like it's not that she or he is not feeling secure in their relationship. It's more so in my head, the unspoken things and the unspoken changes that your life is supposed to have. If it's very tiny, you're not setting those changes, and so because of that you're making your partner feel very uncomfortable with the dynamic. So to your point, and this is the things that I agree with, I think definitely like understanding the issue that they have, because it might be a mix of different things. And again, I've been in this situation in different ways, so I've seen it be a mix. Like I've seen it be either the person just feels like they're spending a lot of time with your best friend, and it
Mhm.
might even be more time, and that in itself is making him feel uncomfortable. It might be what you share with them. It could be you guys have a very flirtatious banter or like sexual banter, and that chemistry is just not sitting right. It could also be lifestyle. I know I have been in this situation too, where the girl was not comfortable, and this was actually a guy, so it wasn't. So my friend is the guy, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
His girl was not comfortable with another of our guy friends. So it wasn't even like she wasn't comfortable with another girl. She wasn't comfortable with a guy. And one of the reasons why she wasn't comfortable with
Oh, that's a unique situation.
it actually happens a lot, because I've actually also been uncomfortable with some of my
Like you feel
previous
like
partners,
okay,
guys.
for her situation, was it a situation where like maybe the person was a bad influence on?
Exactly that. So it was the influence and the lifestyle. So the lifestyle that he had and he would bring her man into was not something that she was comfortable with, because it's like, okay,
Gotcha.
you're influencing my partner in this and this. And it wasn't as if she felt like her partner was going to do anything. It's just like, why are you putting yourself in these
In that
situations?
environment, yep, yep,
Exactly.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So I've seen it happen in way different ways. And you cannot now, in my opinion, you can't say it's because she's insecure. If anything, I feel like it's just there are certain things that she feels uncomfortable with. Like I think because insecurity for me, it's like your partner has not shown you anything, has not given you a reason to not feel security in your relationship, but because of your assumptions, because of your let's say your history, your past, you were hurt previous times, you now carry that insecurity and maybe trauma with you, and you project it on them, right? It's like, oh, you are doing this, but sometimes it may not even be that extreme situation. It may just be like, I don't find it comfortable that you are doing this, like, as because to be honest with you,
It
there's
could
some.
even be like a moral thing. It's like, okay,
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like, there's some actions that like I would not want my partner to do. Not that if you do it, it upsets me, but it's just like based on how I rate myself and
hmm,
how I rate who I want
yep,
to be with. I
hmm,
just don't want
hmm,
you doing certain things. And
yep.
if you do certain things, I kind of feel uncomfortable because it's kind of like, are we truly aligned in like morals, values, and certain things like that? So conversation is definitely very important, and like to your point, understanding why. And I think once you have those conversations, you can now start to drill down like, okay, i- is this just like an unspoken rule of this is the type of things that she wants me to do and I'm not doing it, and can I readjust? Or is it jealousy? Because in some instances it could be jealousy where you're not necessarily, there's nothing there, but because I don't know. Again, maybe there's trauma there. Maybe it could just be jealousy or it could just be insecurities. And that's very hard because in those type of instances, how it usually works is like the partner wants you to cut them off completely, like not have anything to do with them, and that's a
Mm.
bit hard. But if there's a piece that makes them uncomfortable, like let's say me as a single girl and my guy who's in a relationship, I'm telling my guy friends to be like, oh, let's go to the club every Friday. And his partner is uncomfortable with that. I don't necessarily think his partner is insecure by me. I think his partner just feels uncomfortable by the places that I'm dragging her man to. And so
Mm.
in that type of instance, the compromise that her man would do is tell me like, yeah, Lade, I'm in a relationship. And that's also another thing too, circling back to your point. So you said that you feel like men kind of have that blurred line when it comes to boundaries. To be
Uh-huh.
honest with you, I don't want to put it on men because I've seen this happen as well. Well, even women, like certain women have
Probably do not understand boundaries
overstepped.
over. Yep,
No,
yep.
they understand it. They get it. They don't want it in their own situation, but they've overstepped when it's not their situation. And I'm
That's
not putting
crazy.
it on the man.
Mhm.
I'm not putting it on the woman. I'm not putting it on the man because I feel like the boundary should be set up by both parties, right? So if I'm dating someone now, I'm going to readjust like certain dynamics that I have with my super close guy friends just because I want my man to be comfortable. And vice versa, if my friends um go into relationships, I like I mentioned earlier, like I wouldn't just hit them up, 10 p.m. on a Friday night if I know they're with their girl, or I wouldn't just there's certain things I wouldn't do. Like so for example, let's say typically we talk about um attractive. So there's one of my guy friends, like we're always joking about how he has a very specific type, blah 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 blah. So now, like whenever I see a girl on my TL that I think he's attracted to, I send it to him and like, oh, just some weird emojis, right? If he's dating somebody, I'm not gonna do that because that's disrespectful. Do you get? Like those are the type of readjustments that I would do in those
Yeah,
instances if my guy
yeah.
friend, even you too, right? The way I joke about like, oh, getting some whatever, whatever. Once you have a
Mhm.
girl, you that's not gonna come out of my mouth because I am respecting your relationship and setting up certain boundaries.
Yeah. Um, if I may just jump in real quick.
Yeah,
So, like, I think one of the things I said that was really interesting that caught my eye is the unspoken role. And I think
yeah,
this is where like personal discipline comes into place and like just growth. Like
mm-hmm,
I don't have to tell you like, okay, of course, after it's established that I'm serious with this person, I
mm-hmm,
think that's something you have to let your friend know, or if the
yep,
friend matters, right? Like, yo, I'm serious with this person. Naturally speaking, as a good person, like you have to dial a lot of things down. Like you said, some examples, like calling the person randomly at night. If the person was living with you, that is like,
mm-hmm,
don't be calling the person randomly like at late hours. Then like maybe if you guys are clubaholics, you have to dial that down a bit because they probably want to spend time together or whatever. But I would say this: there are some friendships that like you know have spanned decades or whatever, and their like lives are intertwined or interwoven with
mm-hmm,
one another, right? Like I think it is difficult, sometimes for someone new coming into that mix, the girlfriend or the boyfriend, whatever the situation may be, and all of a sudden you want to have more, quote unquote. And it's not like I don't say this in a very negative way, but you want to have like that, leverage or memories or level of banter more than the other person. I think it's impossible to have all that in a short period of time. And I think sometimes people, male or female, look at that and feel like a type of way or like get flustered easily. And my advice to that would be like just chill, try and grow your own situation to a level where you have that same I- you call me naive, but sometimes I look at it like, you know, you look at it like, okay, if I put in more into my situation, that's if you're not suspecting anything or your intuition is not telling you anything different or like you've not seen anything out of the extreme ordinary. But just if it's in a situation of like level of banter, whatever, like 6 months can never compare with 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Like one
yeah,
year cannot compare with 15 years. So like I get it, but it's a situation like, okay, how do I manage the situation? you know.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying because to your point, I feel like especially for friendships that have spanned out over a very long period of time, and maybe not even long period of time, but you guys just have a certain dynamic that cannot be easily replicated. I understand how you can't even compare, especially with a very new relationship. But the way I see it, because
Mhm,
again, I've sat and like this is a topic that I can relate to on so many different
mhm,
levels, right?
mhm, mhm.
The way I see it is if especially if you're serious, right? You can't do this with everybody. Like it's also not every guy that I talk
I'm
to
happy.
that
I'm happy we're on the same page about that. I think it
yeah,
has to be like
has to be
something
serious. Yeah.
birth.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Like, and you have to know yourself, right? Like you, the person bringing in partner into your life, like you have to know, okay, is this something very serious? Because there are compromises that are going to, like you mentioned, it's not going to be easy, right? Having to readjust your friendship dynamic, or it's
Hmm.
going to be a bit weird. So you have to make sure that it's worth the compromise. But the way
Hmm.
I see it is, if you have a friendship, right, outside of your partner, before your partner even came, you have a very close friendship. So me and a guy were very, very close, right?
Hmm.
And I bring a guy into my life because I want to give that guy a very, very good chance.
Hmm.
The way it's going to work is I'm not going to put my friendship on the back burner. No. However, there are
Hmm.
certain instances where I would prioritize my friend. I'm going to readjust that, right? Where my friend and the partner now starts to kind of like level up in terms of the priorities, meaning that like, okay, I'm going to spend this time with my friend, I'm going to spend this time with my partner, like give you guys enough time in my life and actually give my partner the ability to like get all of me, because what I've seen happen is
One
be-
suffers.
exactly where it's like
Hmm.
you don't want to readjust, and that's the problem. It's like, and that's why it's it's so easy for you to like be with your best friend, right? Like that whole concept of you and your best friend, you guys are just platonic and then all of a sudden you start becoming romantic. It makes sense, right? Because you don't have to do that tug of war between like, okay, there's somebody else in my life, I need to slow this down with this friend and then ramp this up with this partner and try and get up to speed. And also that priority and dynamic, like, oh, who really takes the top in my life, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna sound selfish, yeah, but in a serious relationship, I want to come first, like for real, for real, for real. And it's not even saying like I want you to neglect your partner, your friends, because I'm not gonna do that with my friends, and I don't expect you to do that with your friends. I actually want you to have a good, healthy relationship with your friends, right?
Hmm.
However, I want I want them to be very, very, very clear distinctions between what makes you choose me as your partner. Like for me, that partnership, and maybe it's because like you can call me a hopeless romantic. Like I'm hoping my partner becomes my best friend and like my lover, right?
That's
So
the
like
prayer. Yep.
exactly, like I'm hoping to fill those boxes for you. So for me, especially if we're serious, like I want to see how I am that. I don't
Hmm.
want to seem like, okay, I'm just filling the uh romantic boxes for you, but everything else is falling on this other person. Like I'm not gonna feel comfortable with that. It's like just hands
In
down
fact,
no.
I hear you. I hear you 1,000%. I agree with a lot of things that you were saying. And I think, to be honest with you, one thing I like to say is like with this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important piece of the puzzle is the person in the relationship,
Yep.
not even the friends. You're the one that can set the tone. You feel me?
Yes,
And I
yes.
think the friends would fall in line. Like once you're not like, once you're in a relationship and they can see that you're serious, you've told them,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is my girl, type of situation, blah, blah, blah. And they see in your character, the way you act, the way you like, everybody will fall in line. Like,
Yeah,
I think you're the ultimate factor or piece in that situation. Most people deflect to like, oh, maybe the friend not knowing, like
yeah,
whatever. But like, you can control that narrative, in my
yeah.
opinion. And personally speaking, just because of how I am wired, and I know Lada, you can testify to this. I'm all for like, if I'm serious with someone, she's held at a premium. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I want to feel like I'm held at a premium. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's also
And
an
I want my guy to feel that too. So it's not even just from my like it's both ways. Like I
Of
want you to
course.
feel, and I know I've like, again, this is why I said different times of my life I've seen this very, very differently. But now I think with more maturity and as you go through different experiences, you realize how important certain things are. But
Mhm.
the way my and do you know how hard this is for me to say? Because my friends, if you know anything about me, like friends and family, oh Jesus, I don't play with. So for me to now bring a different party into my life and try and finesse you to the top of that, you know, priority list, it's going to take a, and I don't think it's gonna, and to
Mm.
your point earlier, I don't think it's gonna happen in like 6 months or, a short period of time. However, I think one thing that I would try and make happen from the beginning, once I know it's getting serious, is I would truly, truly give you a chance.
So I'll
It's
say something, then I'll ask you a question. So
mhm,
like, I think personally,
mhm,
I would ideally, for me, I would like a situation where my girl is
mhm.
friends with all my friends, like
Yep.
the people like my nearest and dearest type of,
Mhm,
I'll just admire that type of relationship. So like she knows all the guys, she knows all the girls, and they have their own relationships too and everything, and all that is genuine. And like again, like we said earlier, and I think we both agree on this too as well. If the premium has been placed on the girl, the
mhm.
girlfriend and everything, and there's a difference in the level of relations and everything, I don't think there would be any wahala or like stress, if you ask me. But okay, another third thing I'll say before I ask my question would be like, I don't know, for example, I don't know if personally I would want to like, I think there are some things that should be toned down, but personally I don't know if I were to use our friendship for instance, I
Mhm.
don't know if I would want to like, I don't want a situation where you need help you cannot call.
Oh,
I
absolutely. And
things like,
and
yeah,
yeah.
like
Circling
so.
back on everything you just said. So the first thing, yes, I definitely, definitely, learning from my past, from people's experiences around me,
Mhm,
I do want my man to be friends with my friends. Like that's something that is so, so, so important to me now moving forward. And I want to be friends with my partner's friends, female
mhm,
and male. And obviously it would vary, right? There's some people that I'm just gonna have stronger,
mhm, of
liking
course.
towards and all of that. But
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
close, close best friends. Like I want, because I feel like in that type of instances, that is where you now start to really develop respect for one another. Because to your point, I do agree, and this was something you said. Typically, the person in the relationship is the one that's supposed to set the boundaries, and other people around move accordingly. However, I've also seen when the person in the relationship does not set boundaries, and because that person does not have enough like awareness to to set boundaries, the other party, like the friends, now like overstep. So they are not doing anything, but because they did not, so the issue kind of stems from them, right? They didn't
mm,
set the boundaries, but the other parties overstepped. In a situation like that, if I was friends with the other party, I feel like because they have more respect for me, as much as the person, the partner in the middle did not set boundaries and maybe did not have certain respect for the relationship, the friend respect for me would have allowed her set boundaries that shouldn't have been crossed. You get? So
mm.
I definitely feel like being friends, as it don't have to be best of friends, but at least having like a good respect for one another is very, very, very important. And yes, the partner should set those boundaries.
Some people do overdo it. To be honest, there are so
Yeah,
many scenarios and stories I hear where it's
yeah,
like, come on, like, are you being serious? Like, some people
yeah,
do overdo it, and I think in that situation, the person, male or female, should evaluate. Like, okay, like if yeah, just evaluate properly, like think before you like commit to any decision, whether to move with the friendship
yeah,
or like walk away. Yeah, some
yeah.
people do overdo it,
No,
just
some
to be
people absolutely do. And what pisses me off, again, going back to earlier when you had said insecurity, is I've seen it where, and it's kind of a emotional manipulation tactics where you overdo it, but because you don't want to own up for your uh
you
mishaps or for
know
not knowing how to set up boundaries, you now tag it on you're just jealous and you're just insecure. That is a very, very, and I've seen it happen both ways. I'm not trying to put it on guys or girls. Like it's a very, very, very bad like manipulation tactics. Like it really is. Like, and this is why in my head, there should be that unspoken rule. However, because some people truly don't have enough self awareness, they would never know what that rule should be. So, in some instances, I've seen where you do have to have these conversations beforehand, like not when you're in the situation, but like beforehand, like just, when you start to find out, like, oh, he has a lot of girlfriends or she has a lot of girlfriends, just ask questions like, oh, okay. So, like, how do you typically balance your friendship with your partner? Like, things like that, just so you get an ounce of how they manage certain situations, because some people overdo it and don't have self-awareness to like put up boundaries or even own up to their shit. They will put it on you as like, oh, you're insecure, you're jealous.
How much compromise is too much? In a
Oh, in a
in a
relationship, no,
romantic
there's
relationship.
definitely too much, and it's a great question, because I feel like compromise is very, very important in a relationship, and I think
Right.
even in friendships, right, where you and somebody, you can never really see eye to eye on everything. Like, you're human beings at the end of the day. Like, you have to meet halfway. And the way I see compromise, it's like it's a mutual sacrifice that you guys make for each other, right? And so compromising is good. However, there is too much. So the how much is too much? I think too much is when you start to lose yourself, right? Losing
Mm,
yourself meaning that, like, when it becomes so one-sided. One-sided in the sense of like one person in the dynamic is always the one bending their back. Like, is always the one readjusting. It's always the one trying to make sure that you're good. Like, your own wants, your own needs are not being met. It's like not at all. It's always the other person. I think that's when it's too much. Like, when you've lost yourself, you don't even recognize, like, okay, what about this relationship makes you happy? What about this relationship makes you sure? What's about this relationship makes you supported? Like, you don't recognize all of that, like none of it at all, then I would say that's too much when you're the only one making those adjustments in your relationship.
I think I agree with a lot of things that you said.
How do you compromise in the right way and how do you compromise in the wrong way? So if I had to answer it,
Mhm,
right way in terms of like, having conversations, setting boundaries, and like
mhm,
actually ensuring that your partner is can see the ways that you're looking to make them feel less uncomfortable, right? Like, that conversation piece is so important, because I think a lot of people just don't want to accept or don't want to even like make it seem like they're doing any adjustments. It's kind of like, oh, my way or the highway, deal with it. But no, like, you want to have conversations with your partner and see how you guys are getting to the middle ground, right? So I think
mhm,
that's very important. The other thing is patience, right? Both parties have to be patient with one another. You have to understand that you're not always going to see things eye to eye. So you need to be
mhm,
patient to understand each other. Like, you might not necessarily, actually, patience to hear each other out and put yourself in their shoes. You might not necessarily fully understand it like they do. However,
mhm,
you're truly, truly trying your best and like being patient with them to put yourself in their shoes and making adjustments to not have them feel uncomfortable. That's
mhm,
like the good ways. The wrong ways, and I've seen this happen in different ways, is when you start to take tabs on, oh, well, I did this, so you should do this, or I did. It's like you're taking tallies on who compromised when and when the other person should make the compromises. I think that's very, very wrong. And it's such a hard place to catch yourself when you're in it, because as human beings, we like that give and take. That's just who we are, right? It might sound transactional, but even in a relationship, if you give, you feel like you're the only one giving, at some point you're going to reevaluate, like, wait a minute, is this, should I be here, right? So it's kind of easy to find yourself trying to take tabs. However, I think one thing that we should all realize is that in a relationship, and this is something that's taken me a while to really fully grasp, it's not 50-50. It's not, right? You're supposed to both
mhm.
give 100, but 100 in your own way, right? Basically, less of that 50-50, like, oh, I'll do this and then you do the second half. It's more, give it 100% in your own way. I think the wrong way is taking tabs. The right way is like, how can you both give it 100% and make sure that your compromises work
I like that.
consistently?
That
Yeah.
taking tabs on, man,
It's
I
so
don't
easy to
like
do.
it.
Like, it's so easy to do. It's so
It's
easy to
easy to
do.
do, but I think I don't like looking at it. I don't even like that kind of situation happening to me. I think when you let it out is when it's like, man, really, like when you start counting all the times, like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yup.
it's very, yeah,
Yup.
I don't like it. Plus it will make me feel very, you know,
Yeah, and it's
shaky.
so detrimental too, because you feel like, well, if I did this for you, you should do this for me. But it's like, no,
Exactly.
not really. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So is not compromising,
Hmm.
right, at all, is it self-confidence or just selfishness? If someone is like, yo, I'm not stepping down from this, I'm not like,
Oh,
is not
yeah,
compromising at all self-confidence or just selfishness?
yeah. I don't think compromising has anything to do with confidence, self-confidence. If anything, I feel like there's a lot of, this is gonna sound extreme, but hear me out. There's a lot of narcissism that comes with not compromising, where like you feel like your everything needs to revolve around you and your world. And sometimes we catch ourselves, and it takes a lot of self-awareness. I think there's a huge self-awareness piece. And as I've grown up and gotten older, and just self try to advance myself, I think one skill, well, there are a couple, but let me actually say two. There are two very, very soft skills that adults or a mature person should have: self awareness and emotional maturity. Like in emotional intelligence. And I guess emotional intelligence can give you emotional maturity. But those two things, as much as it sounds kind of easy and basic, it takes a lot of constant trying to have. So
Mm,
you cannot even know that you're standing in a point of everything revolves around you. You're not really bending your back. You might think, oh, well, I'm just a strong, independent, blah, 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 blah. But nah,
mm,
you're just not self aware enough to know how this is not really a relationship. It's a one-way street. Like you're not aware enough to see how your partner is suffering in what you might think you're happy in, right? Like you need to
mm,
have a lot of awareness to pick up those type of things. So I don't think not compromising is self-confidence. I do feel like as a person, you should know yourself enough to know what you don't want to compromise on. Because as much as like we're talking about compromising is good. However, I think there's some things you should not compromise on. Like hands down, I'll put my finger on it. There are some fundamental things you should not compromise on. Your values, whatever you
mm,
set for yourself, do not compromise on those. Right? If a
mm.
guy is not treating you in like the way that you feel valuable, the way you feel respected, don't compromise on that shit. Like so, there are
But
some.
Ladi, do you
Yeah.
think values sometimes could be wrong? So like what you hold as like your values, quote in quote, like sometimes that could be wrong if we're being totally honest.
But it's subjective
What
though.
someone could
Wrong
turn,
on you, on your standards versus the other person's standards, right? Like what somebody deems as their values, you see as wrong, not
yeah.
necessarily because. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, and and that's why. And to my point, like, if a girl comes to you, Lamide, and her values don't align with your values, why are you together? Why? Because it's a constant clash. That's the way I see it, right? And the way I kind of see life and values, I'm trying to highlight those as values is not I need to wear Gucci bag every day. No, no. Like I want to separate. I want to separate those
Oh
things
my
because I feel
God.
like yes, there are some values that you don't necessarily align on or you don't see eye to eye on, but like who are you to tell somebody else their values are wrong? What if that's just how they were brought up? What if that's just how they see life, right? It doesn't align with you. And so like why would you be with somebody where you're constantly clashing on values? Why not just not put yourself in that situation?
That makes sense.
Right. So I mean, that's the way I see it. It's like there's certain things that you definitely should not compromise on, like your values. If it's like certain cultural elements that are very very important to you, your spirituality, like certain things that have to do with your religion, like
Hmm.
certain fundamental basic things that give you your own uh ethical compass in this life, don't
Hmm.
compromise on that. Don't, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
However, there's some fundamental things like, oh, eh, I like to cook, but I don't like to cook for you every day. Da, 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 da. It's like, okay, you can come to a sweet spot. Maybe one person is not cooking all the time. Like, you know, there's certain things that you can compromise on. And if you now decide you're not
Another
compromising,
person will say traditional values.
ah, and that's why honestly guys, like align on your values early on, because genuinely I feel like people miss it. Like your values, the way you see the world, the way you
Mhm.
see the world is so, it's so important.
And you said it right, self-awareness. A
You
lot of
have
people
to be
don't have that.
self-aware. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people want to project, and I've seen this happen. And I hate to sound sexist, but like I see this happen a lot within the sexes. It's like there's certain things a man wants to project on a woman, and there's certain things a woman wants to project on a man. And it's like, if you guys don't see eye to eye, why are you trying to change each other? Like, find somebody that falls more in line with the things that you value, the things that you respect, and like the lifestyle and, upbringing that you want for yourself continued. Like, find that rather than being with somebody who is just push and pull, constant tug and fight. And like, at that point, you're not really compromising. It's like you're constantly in a conflict, constantly, just to
Mm-hmm.
find that, I want you to do this. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, middle ground. One thing about middle ground is, even in that middle ground, as much as you're not getting your way, you're not unhappy. I think that's one thing we should know about compromising. How about you? What do you think?
Um, I'll lean more